What's up YouTube, Capital G here, looking at a brand new archetype that's going to be released in Code of the Duelist called Trickstars, and this is going to be played by one of the characters from Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, the anime. Her name is Ai, so you know it's going to be an archetype that gets a lot of support, and I am very glad that I didn't make a video about Trickstars last week. Number one, because they've had their name updated for the TCG. Number two, because we've gotten a little more support, so we now know about a couple of more cards. It's kind of helping us understand what the identity of the archetype is. And number three, because at first I was going to make a video, guys, I was going to talk about these three cards, and my first reaction was, oh my goodness, it's not broken, I'm about to shit on these fucking cards, because they kind of just appeared to be Melodious 2.0, and I was like, oh god, this is another time where they're going to give the female lead character you know, super kawaii desu cute girl deck, and it's going to be complete trash IRL. But I'm looking at this archetype and I think I'm starting to understand what it's supposed to do. It's almost like Konami designed this archetype after its name. It seems like tricksters are just supposed to fucking be a design troll deck. Like, they're just supposed to create mischief, piss your opponent off. I'm not even 100% sure what the win condition is, but just looking at it on paper, the deck seems fun as fuck. I think it will ultimately be more of a casual deck, but I just think that it's looking like a very fun casual deck. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to break down the 5 cards that Trickstars have to their name, and you guys are going to see, especially when I get to the second batch of cards, why I think that this is designed to be a troll archetype. So Trickstars already have a Link monster. The artwork of the Trickstars, by the way, is like fantastic. I think honestly they can find a fan following just based on their art. Like, look at this card, they look really good, and it looks like she's ultra rare as well. You know what they kind of remind me of? They kind of remind me of a cross between like Fortune Ladies meets Melodious. Like, if you combine those two archetypes, that's what you would get. Now I think that right now they are all light fairies, which is good because, you know, if you have any level 4s, you can make things like Fairy Cheer Girl and whatnot. This is Trickstar Holy Angel. She's a light fairy. She's a Link 2. Her arrows point, or her cursors point diagonal, left and right, pointing bottom or pointing down. 2000 attack. Let's see. She requires 2 Trickstar monsters, so she is specific to her archetype. Each time a Trickstar monster or monsters is normal summoned or special summoned to this card's linked zones, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. So as long as you normal summon one of your Trickstars into one of the zones she's pointing at, she's going to instantly burn them for 200. Effect number 2. A Trickster monster linked to this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. I think this is honestly the more important effect. The fact that she gives protection to the other Tricksters. I mean, the 200 burn damage that's negligible. Like, that 200 burn damage ain't killing anybody in Yu-Gi-Oh! Effect number 3, when your opponent takes damage from a Trickster's monster effect, or excuse me, a Trickster monster effect, this card gains attack equal to that amount of damage until the end of the turn. This works with her own effect. So, excuse me, as long as you summon, you burn your opponent for 200, she will go to 2200, and I mean, she'll protect the monsters. Like, I think she's a pretty good card. I wish maybe she would have been like 2300 or something like that. That way she could easily hit that 2500 mark, but it's perfectly fine. Now, this card is really good because the deck already has a Stratos. It's Trickstar Candina, and she is 1800 attack. She's a level 4 fairy. Good artwork on the card. Looks like she's holding like a megaphone or something like that. Like, she's about to shout. 800 defense, and she is basically the Stratos of the deck. I actually think that this card is a little too strong, to be honest. Let me go ahead and read it. Effect number 1, when this card is normal summoned, you can add 1 Trickstar card from your deck to your hand. Okay, the reason that I think that this is like a little too strong is because she can search herself. You guys know pretty much since like the Arc V era, every card that is basically the Stratos of the archetype, like Deneb or Scroll Combat Joker, I'm pretty sure that none of them have been able to search themselves, and they're also once per turn. She is not once per turn, and she can search herself, and the reason that Konami generally doesn't have cards search themselves is because there was a tendency when Stratos first came out, people weren't just playing it in Elemental Heroes and D Heroes and stuff. People were literally just taking 3 Stratos and throwing it into beatdown decks because Stratos was an 1800 gadget, and it's like it would put pressure on the field. It gave you a really solid body, and then it automatically replaced itself. And I mean, based on her first effect, you can do that. Not once per turn, searches herself, and she doesn't just search other monsters for the archetype. She searches any cards, which is going to be really important when we talk about the spells and traps. Effect number 2. Each time your opponent activates a spell and trap card, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. This is where I started to think, oh, so Trickstars are a burn deck because, you know, like this card does burn damage, this card does burn damage. I really kind of wish that it was 500 burn, because that's where I was gonna shit on the archetype. I'm like, bro, come on, 200 burn damage is nothing but, I mean, she's an 1800 Stratos that replaces herself. 200 burn damage is not, like, that's pretty damn good. If she was 500, like, she would be fucking super OP. And then they've got a field spell, which is actually really good as well. It's called Trickstar Light Stage. Field spell. When this card is activated, you can add one Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand. It's pretty crazy, right? The deck already has 2 Surge cards. Their main monster that's 1800 is a Stratos for everything, including herself. And then the field spell can search the monster or any Trickstar monster. This is, I don't know, it's shaping up to be actually pretty decent. Effect number 2. Once per turn, you can target one set card in your opponent's spell and trap zones. While this card is on the field, while this card is in the field zone, that card cannot be activated until the end phase. And during the end phase, your opponent chooses to either activate it or send it to the graveyard. I think that this effect is really, really good. Obviously, you want to play this card because it searches for any of your Trickstar monsters, but this effect is really good because I think that this is going to get rid of a lot of like Solemn Strikes. It's going to get rid of a lot of things like Torrential Tributes and just a very annoying cards like maybe Solemn Warnings. You target a Solemn Warning, you target a Solemn Strike, something that's not chainable, and basically during the end phase, your opponent has to send it to the graveyard because the activation is like the timing is not right. It's kind of like that card Bait Doll, if you guys remember that really old card where it's kind of like a watered down MST a little bit. You basically force the activation of one of your opponent's set cards, and if the activation timing isn't right, then your opponent has to send that card to the graveyard. This effect is kind of like a built-in Bait Doll. I like it a lot. And then effect number 3, it says each time a Trickstar monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. So you see all 3 cards have burn damage built into them. She triggers whenever you summon to a linked zone. She triggers whenever your opponent activates a spell or trap, and then then the field spell triggers whenever you do battle damage. So that's why I thought that they were initially supposed to just be a straight up burn deck. I was like, okay, that's not bad. Again, I wish it was 500. I think it would be a little easier to, you know, with increments of 500. I think it'd be a little easier to get the 8,000 that you need. But then I looked at these 2 cards and I was like, hold on, I gotta start with the fucking trap. This trap is absolutely nuts. So this is Trickstar Reincarnation, and I actually took a second, paused the video to bring up a card that I was thinking about called Present Card, and I'm gonna read the effect and then I'm gonna talk about this card. It's a normal trap. It says effect number 1, banish as many cards from your opponent's hand as possible, and if they do, they draw the same amount of cards from their deck. Effect number 2, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Trickstar monster in your graveyard, special summon it. It can be extra deck monsters, and this can activate during the turn that it's sent to the graveyard, which is really good. Okay, let's focus on this effect number 1, which is completely fucking stupid, and this is why I think that this deck is designed to be a troll deck. I know that that sounds weird, but I just think that this deck is designed to cause mischief. This reminds me a lot of this card, Present Card, which a lot of people use this card in deck out. It discards the opponent's entire hand, and then it forces them to draw 5 cards, and it obviously will just gets them to very, very low very, very quickly. The difference between Trickstar Reincarnation and Present Card is at least once per turn. For starters, guys, how many cards in Yu-Gi-Oh can banish your opponent's entire hand? Because I can't think of any. I mean, you need to understand the significance of that. I know a lot of people are going to be thinking, oh, Cap G, what's the big deal? They draw the same amount of cards anyway. Guys, the whole get rid of your opponent's hand and then make them draw a new hand, like, that's not built into that many cards. A lot of those cards are like Morphing Jar, and a lot of those fucking cards are banned for a reason. And you need to understand one important thing about this. This card is not once per turn, and this shit is searchable, right? So imagine if you happen to be playing Zodiac, right? And you say, all right, I'm gonna Tinky for my rat here. Okay, I'm just gonna activate Trickstar Reincarnation. I'm gonna banish your rat. You now have 1 rat in your deck. Good luck trying to pop off with any combos. Like, it's just not gonna happen. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Zodiacs don't run Levier the Sea Dragon, so it's like no way for you to get your rat Pier back. And I thought about this, right? Think about this very common situation. Let's say I go first, and again, this is a searchable card, so it's not like I can't get to it. Let's say I set 2 of these and you're playing a 40 card deck, so you open with your 6 cards, which means you have 34 in your deck. Let's say you activate a pretty common card, Pot of Desires. You were at 34. You take 10 because you banished those, so now you're at 24. You draw 2 cards, so now you're at 22. Then I flip over this Trickster Reincarnation, and I make you draw 7 more cards. So you were at 22. Now you're at what, 15? And then I activate a second one, so you were at 15. Now you have 8 cards in your fucking deck. You have 8 cards to win with. I mean, yeah, you'll have a pretty big hand, but you have 8 cards, and all your cards are banished, so they're not coming back. Like, I don't understand why this card is not once per turn. I think that the chances of this card being played in another degenerate troll deck are extremely high, and yeah, I think Konami fucked up with the design of this card. And then let's look at the final card called Trickstar Lilybell. Man, are these cards oh, well, she's holding a bell. I was like, these cards are all cute as a button. I swear to goodness. All right, Trickstar Lilybell. She's a light fairy, level 2, 800 attack, 2000 defense though, guys. That ass though. I mean, 2000 defense is very solid for a level 2 monster. You can only use her effect 1, or her effect 1, I guess, once per turn. Effect 1. If this card is added to your hand except by drawing it, you can special summon this card from your hand. Considering we already know that they have 2 searching cards, I'm going to say that that is pretty easy to do. Effect 2, this card can attack directly, which is definitely good because direct attackers are good. And again, if you attack directly while you have the field spell, then you get 200 burn damage as well. Effect 3, if this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target 1 Trickstar monster and your graveyard added to your hand. Dude, I don't know why. I thought this archetype a week ago was going to be absolute garbage, but I think I have come full circle. It looks so fun. It looks so trolly. And the 2 monsters that they have, the 2 main deck monsters, are both very good. The field spell is very good, and this card could eventually hit the limited list because I don't know, I'm just thinking about playing like a deck out deck with like 3 copies of Reincarnation plus like 3 present cards, and basically every single turn I'd be like forcing you to discard your hand. And the thing is, a lot of times when you play those deck out decks, your opponent can have like 7 cards, but if they're just a bunch of junk cards because you've gotten rid of all their good cards, they really can't do anything. So I don't know, I think that this card was a mistake, especially it not being once per turn, and it is searchable. So let me know what you guys think. Tricksters seem like a very, very cool archetype so far. And again, since one of the main character in Vrains plays them, you know they'll probably be supported for at least the first 3 sets of the Vrains era. Because like Melodious got support for the first 3 sets. I hope that she is a bigger character than Yuzu, because Yuzu just, you know, she kind of became trash after the Cinco Dimension. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. As always, let me know what you think about Tricksters. I think they're pretty good right now. And leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching as always.